Welcome to GameCube Gallery, the video series where we are taking a look at the GameCube library one game at a time. In the previous episode of GameCube Gallery, we took a look at the creepy and awesome survival horror action adventure game Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem, and if you missed that, I will leave a link to that video in the description down below. Be sure and check that out. But in today's video, we are completely changing gears, and we are taking a look at Barnyard. What's up, everybody? Just a quick disclaimer, my main really good camera that I use for all of the YouTube videos to get that nice, crisp, beautiful video quality is unfortunately not working, and I have to send it off for repairs, so I'm having to use my backup camera, and I want to let you know this because the video quality will not quite be up to the standards that most of my other videos have been for at least the foreseeable future until I get my main camera back. But that's enough about that. Let's get back to the video. Barnyard first began as a computer animated movie in 2006 from Paramount and Nickelodeon. And it is about a cow named Otis who has to learn responsibility and how to protect the farm instead of partying and causing trouble all the time. Barnyard was written and directed by Steve Odekirk, and who is that, you say? Well, you might recognize him from the 2002 comedy classic Kung Pao Enter the Fist, as he was the writer, director, and the star. He also wrote classics such as Bruce Almighty, Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, and Patch Adams. Barnyard had a stellar voice cast with actors and actresses such as Kevin James, Courtney Cox, Danny Glover, Sam Elliott, and Wanda Sykes. I watched the movie for the first time before playing the game, and it was just okay. I'll probably not watch it again, and it currently has an IMDb rating of 5.6 out of 10. It must have had some success though, because it spawned a TV show on Nickelodeon called Back at the Barnyard and ran for 2 seasons, and it of course spawned the video game that this video is about. Barnyard the video game was released on the GameCube, PS2, Windows, and Game Boy Advance on August 1st, 2006, and later came to the Wii on November 19th, 2006. Sorry, Xbox owners. Barnyard was published by THQ, and the console versions of the game were developed by Blue Tongue Entertainment. THQ, now known as THQ Nordic, started in 1990 and is a massive video game publishing and development company that I am sure most of you know about. But just in case you don't, here's a few notable game series published and or developed by THQ are Darksiders, The Blob, Destroy All Humans, Red Faction, and Saints Row. Blue Tongue Entertainment is a video game developer out of Australia that started in 1995 and was eventually acquired by THQ in 2004, then sadly they closed down and restructured in 2011. They developed games such as The Polar Express, Nicktoons Unite, Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Island, and most notably they developed The Blob 1 and The Blob 2. Now let's jump right into the game and start talking about the story in Barnyard.
I mean, did you ever think of donating your body to science?
There isn't really much of a story in the video game, and it doesn't really follow the story of the movie at all. You don't even play as Otis, instead you play as a male or female cow you get to name who is a newcomer on the farm. So what little story there is told through the occasional cutscene, but mainly told through dialogue when you interact with the other farm animals and take on missions. Your 2 main goals as the noob on the farm seem to be to become the Barnyard champion by getting stars on all the mini games, and also to make the night barn an even better place for the animals to party. But when you take on missions from Ben, he does seem to be prepping and training you to protect the farm just like with Otis in the movie, so maybe there's a thread of a story to be pulled there. So don't expect an engaging narrative here because it just doesn't exist. Since this is a game really geared towards kids, that's okay. Next, let's discuss graphics, animation, and performance.
I'm a mouse. Do them out. Pig, we got a code red. Uh-oh.
The graphics in Barnyard are actually not that bad, and they capture the look and art direction of the movie. The farm is colorful and full of buildings and foliage like plants, grass, trees, and there are plenty of assets scattered around the environment, both indoors and outdoors, to add to the atmosphere. The texture work is actually not half bad either, with details that I don't typically see in games from this era with this type of art style. Character models all look great and are really well done, but I still have to ask myself the same question I was asking while watching the movie. Why in the hell do male cows have udders? Now, while there is some nice variety to the different character models you encounter with all the different animals you interact with, there is not much variety in the environment itself, as most of it is grass, dirt, plants, trees, and woods. But you do have some locations that mix things up a bit, like Beatty Farm with all the different houses and barns there, as well as the golf course over on Izzy Springs, but other than that, you can expect to see the same generic farm environments all throughout the game. Now, I will say that Barnyard has some pretty good animations in-game that all look and feel very fluid, which I appreciate. Everything from riding your bike and doing tricks to taking part in the various minigames to simply running and jumping all have great animations, and you can tell the devs put a lot of work into this aspect of the game. In terms of performance, Barnyard is a bit rough. I noticed consistently bad frame rate all throughout the game. That is a bit nauseating at times, but you start to get used to it after a while. I suspect that Barnyard was not optimized well because in a way it is a small scale open world game, as the farm is fairly large and there are no loading screens between areas, which is impressive. I will say that what loading screens there are pretty fast, which is nice. Now let's change gears and talk about music and sound design. Some of the music in Barnyard is actually pretty damn good. As soon as the title screen loads up, you get hit with this fast-paced and happy-sounding intricate banjo melody that then adds an accompanying piano solo to it for some depth, and it is just a ton of fun to listen to. I also like that as you move between the menu selections, it makes sort of a boingy string plucking sound. During the day in the game, you have another banjo plucking tune with some rhythm guitar in the background and some whistling and drums thrown in, and it fits the atmosphere of the game perfectly. When you get on your bike and start riding, the music changed to sort of a country instrumental tune, and it is very well done. And one really nice touch is that when you wreck your bike, you hear a record scratch sound and the music abruptly stops, which was a cool touch. At night, there's more of a slower melodic guitar-based tune playing, and it has sort of a mysterious tone to it that really fits the atmosphere of nighttime on the farm. Every now and then, particularly at nighttime, you get this kind of country and bluesy tune played with a guitar that I really liked. As you approach the barn at night, you get a muffled glimpse of the music within, and it sounds like a high-energy honky-tonk dancing kind of tune, but then when you enter the barn, you just hear the title screen music, which still fits, but it was a bit odd that it didn't match what you hear from the outside. But then you go downstairs and there's sort of a jazzy tune, which again fits the atmosphere of the downstairs area. One thing that I thought was funny is that when your cow puts on his sunglasses to get ready to squirt things, more on that later. A remix of Bad to the Bone starts to play, which is hilarious. And of course, the minigames you play all have their own music as well. Oddly enough, there are some locations with no music, like when you enter the barn during the day, but I guess it's a nice change of pace. Another thing Barnyard does particularly well is the sound design. There are so many sounds, both with your interactions with the world and of course atmospheric background sounds. You will hear birds chirping in the background, frogs croaking, water running. At nighttime you will hear the insects and so much more, which all add to the atmosphere of life on the farm and out in nature. Based on the quality of the overall presentation of Barnyard, I feel like they had a decent budget for the development of the game, well, except when it comes to voice acting. They managed to get the original cast for the voice acting, which is great, and the few cutscenes are fully voice acted and very well done. The strange part is when you're talking to characters in-game. Typically only the first line of dialogue is voice acted and then the rest is not, which tells me they didn't have the budget for full voice acting through all the dialogue.
Hello there, newcomer. My name is Miles.
I think it would have been better to just have all the in-game dialogue have no voice acting instead of just the first line, but that's just a small nitpick. All in all, the music and sound design in Barnyard is incredibly well done and actually surprised me quite a bit. But what about the most important thing being the gameplay and fun factor? Well, let's get into that next. The gameplay in Barnyard consists of 3 different things: exploring the farm, taking on missions from the animals, and partaking in various minigames. The farm in Barnyard is surprisingly large and consists of several areas to explore that are all seamlessly connected with no loading screens, making this a small open world game. One thing to note, however, is that many areas are locked to the player until you progress by completing missions. As you explore the farm, there are a variety of things to discover and find. You will find gopher bucks, mostly within various containers you can bust open. Gopher bucks are used at the Gopher Underground to buy various things like ingredients, upgrades for the night barn, and more. You'll be searching for recipes for various food you can cook up and mocktails you can create, both of which can be sold for gopher bucks and are sometimes needed to complete missions. The recipes can be found under the rocks with an X on them hidden throughout the farm. To complete these food and mocktail recipes, you will need different ingredients such as fruit, vegetables, and more, and all of these ingredients are scattered around the farm. You will also get Gold Rush tokens for Gold Rush machines. When you insert a token into a Gold Rush machine, coins appear and you have to try and collect all of them before time runs out. There are also 64 game tips to find scattered around the map, which reveal useful information about the game. You also eventually get a metal detector to find metal cans in the ground around the farm, and I hate using this thing because you move so freaking slowly while using it and it is very tedious and boring. Lastly, you will gain milkweed seeds as mission rewards, which can be planted in certain spots to create a vine-like ladder to reach secret areas. So you'll be running and jumping around the farm as you explore, but you can also ride a bike, which is pretty fun, although the controls are a bit stiff. You can speed up on your bike and even power slide and do tricks while in the air, which is a fun gimmick. The bike is by far the fastest way to get around the farm, as sadly there's no fast travel system in Barnyard. As you explore new sections of the farm, exploring it can be fun at times, if not a bit easy, because you can't really travel off the beaten path, so it's easy to find everything. There's also a day-night cycle that you can switch at any time. Some missions are only available at night, and also nighttime is when you can visit the Gopher Underground store and the night barn. Now, the way to progress the game is to take on various missions from the different animal characters around the farm. Many of these missions are simple fetch quests like bring them certain ingredients, cook them certain recipes, and more. These missions are boring and uninspired and do nothing exciting from a gameplay perspective. There are also many missions where you have to use your sunglasses, which magically give you the power to squirt milk out of your udders at things, and your goal here is to squirt all the cans in an area within the time limit. The squirting controls are janky as hell and just not fun to do. But I will say there is a ton of hilarious and suggestive dialogue in the game about squirting on things. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Also, look at these animations you can watch in the bonus menu. Yeah. The other type of missions that are fun are the missions which result in a mini-game, which we will cover most of the mini-games here in a bit. These missions start off being pretty fun with the various mini-games you get to play until you start to cycle through the same mini-game over and over, and then the game starts to become very repetitive before transitioning into downright boredom. I mean, look, the main story of Barnyard takes between 8.5 to 11.5 hours to complete, and that is just too long for a game like this. There is not enough gameplay variety here to fill up a 10-hour game. Ideally, Barnyard should have been around 4 to 5 hours max. Speaking of game length, I do want to mention that the fastest speed run for Barnyard is 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 41 seconds, which is nuts. Lastly, on gameplay, let's cover some of the minigames. As you play the minigames during the story, you unlock them for free play. In Whack-A-Rack, you control a hammer and there are 9 holes that raccoons will pop out of, and you use the control stick and the A button to hit the raccoons as fast as possible as they pop out of the holes while trying to avoid hitting other farm animals, and this takes place over the course of 5 rounds. This game is fun and really tests your reflexes as you aim for that high score. In Chicken Launch, you start off as a cow pulling a giant rubber band back with the chicken, and you have to tap the A button to keep the power meter in the right spot. Once the chicken is launched, you have to guide it through the air, avoiding obstacles and boosting with the A button, and flying through rings restores your boost. Once you reach the barn, you have to aim for an opening in the barn, and the smaller the opening, the more points you get. Yet another fun minigame that I enjoyed. In Gopher Golf, you play through 9 holes, and you start off by teeing off as the cow, and then when the ball hits the green, you control a gopher that can move around the environment and try to help the ball into the hole in as few tries as possible. It doesn't have much depth, but it is a fun twist on golf that I enjoyed playing once or twice. In Tease the Mailman, there is a mailman filling up a mailbox, and you are behind him striking goofy poses and dances while his back is turned. You do these poses and dances with various button combinations, then when the mailman is getting ready to turn around, you press X to drop on all 4s like a normal cow. This is a pretty fun minigame, and it's also funny as hell with a wide variety of silly actions you can perform. In Joyride, you're racing other cows while in a vehicle while also trying to avoid the cops so they don't see that you're a cow. You just have to get first place in 1 lap, so it's pretty simple and the driving controls are surprisingly good. This one racing game in Barnyard controls so much better than this piece of shit right here, and if you want to know what I'm talking about, I did an episode of GameCube Gallery on this game, Modellista. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below if you want to learn more about this train wreck. In Mud Jumpers, you and 3 other animals are on a platform around a mud pit, and there is a long pipe spinning around, and you either have to jump over it or try to kick it back in an effort to knock the other animals into the mud and be the last animal standing. I enjoyed this reflex and timing based mini game, and it is short and sweet. In Barnyard Pool, you basically play a very simplistic version of 8-ball pool, except instead of stripes and solids, the balls are yellow and red and the 8-ball is black. All you can do is move your stick and set your power. There's no changing your camera angle and no adding spin to the ball. Despite the simplicity, I had fun with this one a few times as well. In Bike Race, you do 2 laps around a track against other cows and collect coins along the way. As long as you carefully manage your boost and stay on track, this is incredibly easy to win. This minigame was okay for 1 or 2 plays, but that's about it. There are a few other minigames, but you get the idea. All in all, Barnyard starts off fun with some interesting gameplay and fun minigames, but sadly after a few hours you have seen and played all the content that it has to offer, and it starts to become repetitive and boring before you even hit the halfway point, which makes finishing the game a slog. So let's get to my final thoughts. So ultimately, Barnyard is an average game. It isn't great, but it isn't terrible either. It's just okay. Barnyard is a game that has little to no story pulling you through, and that is okay because this type of game doesn't necessarily need a story. The graphics and in-game animations are all very well done, but the performance is poor at times with bad frame rates. The music is excellent and the sound design is top-notch, but they tease you with short bits of voice acting that quickly turns into no voice acting, and it's a little jarring. The gameplay and fun factor is pretty good at first, but quickly becomes repetitive and boring to a point that starts to wear on your patience as the game is just too long for such few gameplay mechanics. But I will say this, if I had this game when I was a kid or even a young teenager, I would not have hardly noticed any of these issues and probably would have had a blast with the game. So if you have any kids, or if you're a fan of the Barnyard movie, or if you're just looking for a few hours of fun, then I recommend checking out Barnyard the video game. On Metacritic, the average critic score is 66 out of 100 with 12 critic reviews, and the average user score is 8.4 out of 10 with only 8 user ratings. So the movie itself was fairly successful in the box office, but unfortunately this didn't really translate to great sales for the game, as the GameCube version only sold around 90,000 units in North America and around 120,000 units worldwide. This is also a rare case where the GameCube version outsold the PS2 version, as the PS2 version only sold around 50,000 units in North America and around 90,000 units worldwide. Given the relative success of the film and this being a decent kids game, I'm not really sure why it didn't sell well. Thankfully, it isn't a very expensive game, as at the time of this recording, PriceCharting.com shows the average loose price at around $11, the average complete price at around $19, and the average new price at around $41. I'm seeing current eBay listings for around $22 to $25 complete, and I'm seeing recent eBay sold listings for around $26 to $27 complete. Which, to be honest, I was not expecting Barnyard to be over $20 on eBay, so it is entirely possible that this game could keep going up in price. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really see many copies of Barnyard out in the wild, so it might actually be an uncommon game due to the low sales numbers, so if you're a GameCube collector, I would go ahead and pick it up. Well, there you have it, folks. That is today's episode of GameCube Gallery on Barnyard. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and hit that like button. It really means a lot to me and it helps out the channel quite a bit. And if you have played Barnyard before, let me know that in the comments down below and let me know what you think about the game. Also, let me know in the comments down below if there are any GameCube games that you recommend that I cover for a future episode of GameCube Gallery. As always, folks, stay safe out there, keep playing games and having a good time, and I will catch you all in the next video. Later.